But tonight, we are all here not for that, but for this wonderful author talk with Nico Lang, who is here to celebrate their groundbreaking new book based on their research, where they went around the country interviewing trans and non-binary teenagers about their experience living in America today. And they are going to be in conversation tonight with Emmy from Equality Michigan. So please help me welcome Nico.
I'm supposed to do a reading now. Oh, wait. Helpful for it to be. Wait, is it on? There we go.
It's on.
Hello. First, I have to ask, what Japanese silent film are you watching? Okay. No, slay. Okay. There's this early Ozu one. Sorry, I'm a nerd about these sort of things. Called I Was Born But ... That was like the antecedent to The Little Rascals. Like literally, The Little Rascals is based on it, and it slays. So. If you guys could play that one, that would be great. Like, if you're taking suggestions. Okay, so normally I let you guys pick I do like I need a number 1 through 7 sort of thing, but we're not doing that because I'm gonna pick the chapter that we're reading. Mostly because Emmy is almost done, and I wanna give her just a little taste of what she's missing. So, as you heard from that lovely introduction, thank you so much for that. I spent a year traveling the country to 7 different states, South Dakota, Alabama. I'm seeing if I can do this in order. That's why I look like I'm having a stroke. South Dakota, Alabama, West Virginia, Texas, this is where I get stuck, Illinois, Florida, California. And I spent 2.5 weeks with each kid. It's sort of like a fly on the wall documentary, this book. Like whatever the family would do, I would do. If they were eating dinner, I would eat dinner. If they were going to a homecoming game, I would go to a homecoming game. If they were to jump out of an airplane, guess who would be jumping out of an airplane? Me. Really glad we did not do that. I did jump out of an airplane once. It was horrible. Legally, they're not allowed to push you out of the plane. They had to push me out of the plane to get me out that window. I would not leave. And I was never really trying to influence my subjects. I was always kind of trying to observe them as they were. But I did, we'll just say, take the reins in one respect, in that in California, I found out that my subject, Kylie, who at the time, was 17 then, she's Japanese Hawaiian, she's a really lovely family. She goes to the Buffy the Vampire Slayer school in Torrance, California, and she'd never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, barely knew what it was. And I was like, girl, if I'm doing one thing for you before I leave, we are watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer together. So that's what my reading's gonna be about, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? Come on. It's been out for so long. I'll give you my Hulu password. It's great. You'll love it. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, we're playing Can I Find My Own Chapter? Everyone's favorite game. Oop, that is too far. We should do like the Jeopardy music. All right, here we go. I did find it. All right, so on most evenings, Kylie and I take over her living room to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the supernatural teen soap opera starring Sarah Michelle Gellar as a 15-year-old cheerleader who is likewise struggling with her destiny. This is Kylie's first time seeing the series, which was filmed at her high school, and every external shot of the sweeping Mediterranean Revival campus, with its imposing entryway columns and porcelain courtyard fountain, triggers a burst of surprised ecstasy. I was just sitting on that bitch with my friend, she shrieks. As a staunch fashion girl, Kylie loves the show's quintessentially late 90s style, in particular the layered hair, feathered jackets, and casual sundresses favored by its cosmically put-upon protagonist Buffy Summers. If she has an issue with Buffy's early episodes, it's that the only cute boy at the fictional counterpart to Torrance High is the first to be turned, a geek portrayed by the inappropriately handsome Eric Balfour, who could only pass as a loser in an alternate universe. Kylie wishes the nerds at her school look like him, she insists with a decisive nod. As we snack on the barbecue-flavored seaweed rolls her relatives ship from Hawaii, Kylie wonders why the show couldn't have sacrificed someone else to the underworld instead. Her personal suggestion is Xander, the toxically lovelorn sidekick, played by Nicholas Brendan. To watch a show about the emotional toil of battling inexhaustible evil is surreal in a year where a staggering 500 anti-LGBTQIA+ bills have, thus far, been introduced in states across the country. And since April 2021, 20 states have passed laws limiting gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth, most recently Missouri. But despite the seeming allegorical parallels afoot, Kylie says that Buffy's journey doesn't resonate with her own, and she likes it that way. While she can certainly relate to the struggles of trying to blissfully enjoy her youth even as dark forces encroach, the point is that she shouldn't have to make the same decision that the Slayer does, of taking up the fight simply because others want her to. She should get to be a normal girl with normal friends and normal problems, rather than spending her free nights and weekends trying to prevent the end times. I have enough to worry about, she says. I'm rooting for y'all who have to worry about your lives, but I gotta do me. During one of our regular park strolls, Kylie confesses that she initially didn't want to participate in this project, that she only agreed to be in this book because she knew it would make her mother happy. She's ultimately glad that she said yes because she's been having a much better time than she expected, as she initially figured she would be treated like a lab test subject rather than a person. Instead, we spend our days whiffing softballs at the batting cages, browsing her favorite stores at the mall in search of jeans, and seeing body comedies at the fancier of the 2 AMC locations in town. Kylie especially liked No Hard Feelings, a raunchy, sweet Jennifer Lawrence vehicle about a slacker who answers a personal ad from parents offering a Buick Regal sedan to any woman willing to date their socially awkward son. Sorry, I had tots right before this. Okay. The film, with its hard edges softened by neat third-act life lessons, reminded Kylie of the kinds of entertainment she had planned for her summer, a schedule of events that did not include bearing her soul to a quasi-stranger she only just met. This is the last summer break she'll ever have before she graduates, and she's looking forward to it starting, to spending 10 weeks free from others' expectations. But while we are still together, she's trying to decide what she wants from this experience, what she can derive from it. She would like to learn something about herself through the process, she thinks, to surprise herself with the emotions that rise from the depths. Moment, page turn. The question of what Kylie is feeling these days is one she doesn't know how to answer. Its very contemplation overwhelming her as we sit together at a table in the park. She has spent so long trying not to think about this, to hide her vulnerability and to avoid looking too far within, afraid of what she will find. As a few tears tumble through our tabletop's black metal web, she buries her face in her arms, embarrassed to be seen this way. She is quiet for a long time before composing herself. She's so done with it all, she says, with needing to explain herself, with worrying what the old white men who make decisions about her, oh my God, I can do this, I swear to God. With what worrying what the old white men who make decisions think about her existence. God, who wrote this book? With constantly feeling as if everyone is enjoying themselves at her expense. I'm just tired of everything at this point, she says, more empty than sad. I'm tired of not being invited out by my friends. I'm tired of being trans. I wish I felt like I didn't have anything to worry about. It's so minuscule, but I just feel like it adds up, and I'm just tired. Kylie asks if we can start walking back to her house, so I change the subject as she reapplies her lip pencil, asking her to expound on the difference between, quote, mid-ugly boys and boys that are, quote, ugly, a theory she had briefly elucidated earlier in the day. Initially, she puts forward the actor Michael Cera as an example of the former. His tenuous chin and bird-like features have a certain appeal from the right angle, perhaps, before moving him into the latter category. You're not hideous, she says of what makes a man passably unattractive. You're okay. You maybe have one person going for you. The conversation shifts, as it often does while recording the Kylie podcast, to a range of other topics. Her favorite episodes of the sci-fi series Black Mirror, why she never got into the unhinged Archie comic pastiche Riverdale, which of the neighbors have Trump signs in their yards. Sliding into her unmistakable, I've got juicy gossip voice. She says that there's a house that has a, quote, impeach Biden sign, unquote, that the owners illuminate at night. Another home had security cams all over the property to make sure no one stole their Trump gear. I was just like, take that down. And everyone else who walked by was like, take it down. And then he did, she tells me. While Kylie wants to get unstuck, she knows that there's no forcing it. Maybe crying in front of a journalist today is a solid step. The universe appears to think so as she takes advantage of the walk to add to her growing collection of angel numbers, repeating combinations of digits that she believes confer good luck. She spots a 444 combination on a license plate, which she says is her favorite because it's the one she sees most often, and also a rare 555 sequence. Kylie is aware that the concept of enchanted integers sounds silly, but a fateful trip to her mother psychic, who, with each reading, never fails to make Janet weep uncontrollably, taught her to be open to the unknowable. The medium wrote Kylie on a piece of paper with 3 stars, saying that she envisioned the celestial bodies floating above the girl's head. She then asked if the symbols meant anything. Kylie responded, through her own tears, that she sleeps under a trio of glow-in-the-dark stars affixed to her bedroom ceiling, which were hidden under a tapestry at the time. Seeing the serendipitous repetition of 111 or 777 similarly helps Kylie to remember that it's okay if she doesn't have it all figured out yet, because some benevolent force out there does. This is actually crazy, she says, satisfied with her gospel of prosperity. We're protected right now. That's the end of that chapter. Sorry for the spoiler.
So, like, this kind of gets to, first, again, Emmy Zanotti. I'm the senior political director at Equality Michigan. So all of the legislative advocacy work on behalf of the LGBTQ community, electoral and voter engagement work is my shop here. And so this is a little bit different lane for me to be in, right? And I'm really looking forward to kind of growing here. But just like listening to you and having read most of the book.
90%, that's a good percentage.
That's a very good percentage for someone with like, high functioning ADHD. Like, I'm doing really well in the middle of like a constitutional crisis. So,
wow.
I mean, bonus points, I'm basically at 110%. I think that's what we gathered. Yeah. So, like, if anyone in the room hasn't read the book yet, like, I can't explain, as someone who like writes columns, like op-eds for the Free Press and things, like how hard it is to write about reality, but in a way that like brings so much color and like artistry to the conversation. And I just like, it's so cool to hear your voice reading those words now, right? Because it's just like, it's so hard to explain how magnificent Nico is at this. So just like, I think we're, just so awesome to have you here tonight with us in Ann Arbor. So thank you for making the trip.
She's trying to embarrass me.
Yeah, I am trying to embarrass you.
No, I love it. Please.
Don't worry, it gets better. So first, I just want to talk about the introduction, right? And so you're writing briefly at the beginning about a family, the Shapleys, and Kimberly's the mom, right?
Kimberly's the mom, and Kai is the daughter.
Kimberly's the mom, Kai's the daughter, and you write about this moment, and I'm going to ask you to try to like describe this scene for folks in a second, because I think in Michigan, this is all sort of like new-ish in terms of the scare and the fright, at least. But, it says, Kimberly is one of America's loudest and most visible activists fighting discrimination aimed at families like her. And this is the part I want to emphasize, because we're talking about a family in Texas. So this is about when Texas Republicans are trying to make being a parent of a trans kid basically a felony at this point. And it says, but that day she seemed lost and distraught, almost fragile. I could feel her disorientation like a heartbeat, and I listened silently, unsure of what to say or whether I should try to comfort her. That hesitance led to the idea for this book. So if you're willing to, would you describe just like the feeling of being there that day, that scene, like this hesitancy you talk about? Because I think it's how a lot of people, and especially for parents of trans kids in the room, like that hesitancy and that silence and that just like feeling is like, I think how a lot of people in this state and the country are feeling right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. And also thank you so much to everybody who's coming. For coming. I've only been to like Michigan like twice in my life. So I genuinely had I was like, I don't know anyone who's going to come to this. So thank you all. This has been like really lovely. Go Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor's great. Yeah. But yeah, I think, for me, I kind of hate advice. Like, and I always hate anybody being like, there, it's going to be okay. Right? Because you don't know it's going to be okay, actually. And in that moment, like listening to her, there was that human part of me that wanted to go, there, it's going to be okay. But I also have this thing that I don't lie. So never ask me a question if you don't want the like honest truth, because I will tell you. And I just didn't want to lie to her. And I was like, I don't know. Because, you know, your state is trying to make you a felon just for like supporting your kid. And I felt like the way that I could be supportive, that I'm not that good at that many things. I'm not negging myself. I'm genuinely terrible at most things that I try. Like I went to a restaurant earlier and there was this like, you had to like pull down this like tab to open a curtain, and behind the curtain was this water. They had to literally explain it to me because I like couldn't do it. I'm just really bad at most things, but I'm good at writing. And I knew how to use my like tools and my skills to help her and to tell Kimberly's story because I've known her for a really long time. Kimberly is sort of like considered part of my chosen family. You're not really supposed to be like friends with your subjects, but it's like I've known these people for so long that it's like, of course I like care about them. Of course, like we spend so much time together. We talk all the time. It just happens. And I just felt like I needed to do something. Like I needed to express her voice and her story and the stories of these kids on a bigger scale than I think I'd had the opportunity to do, because I've been doing this work for a really long time. And I've been just like kind of like shouting from the rafters, right? And it just often felt like I wasn't getting through. And there's this idea that it's kind of a problematic statement, so I apologize in advance, but they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I was like, I just need to do something different. Like I have a responsibility as someone who knows Kimberly and loves Kimberly and also as a reporter to use my skills to do this. So that for me, it's like I couldn't comfort her in the moment because I just couldn't promise something that wasn't true, but I could write this book. So that's what I did.
And we appreciate that. You did write the book. The process, I don't know how long it took you, but there's
Years.
How many families in the book in total?
7.
And how many families did you?
That was it.
There
were no apocryphal families. I was never gonna like, yeah, we love a good apocrypha joke. But there was never gonna be like a family where I like lived in their house for like 2.5 weeks, for lack of a better way to put it, and like ate their food and like, you know, went through these really profound experiences with them and then didn't put them in the book because I just couldn't do that to people. I spent a year working on this story for Rolling Stone that you should please read because I put so much work into it, on American Idol. And I interviewed like it was probably like 30 queer former contestants at that show. And I just couldn't include everybody, right? Because I sort of over-interviewed on purpose, because then you can whittle down to the stories that really like stand out to you and that you know are gonna like really resonate with readers. And one of the subjects who I really didn't even talk to for very long, it was only like a half hour, was so upset that his story wasn't in the article. And it wasn't even that he went through anything particularly, that's why I didn't really put it in, but it was just that like it mattered to him to feel heard. And he wanted that feeling reflected on the page. And it really, like, how do you say? Like, I know I shouldn't have felt guilty for not putting him in because it was the right thing to do for the story. But as a human being, I felt for him. I know what that must have felt like. And to know that I contributed to that in some way, it really sucks. And I would just never want to do that to a family, to be like, eat their food and like poop in their toilet and then be like, oh, by the way, when you read the book, you're not in it. You know, I'm just never going to do that to somebody because I know how much it means to put yourself out there like this. It's a big thing that people risk.
Yeah, that touches on something like in organizing, we deal with a lot, right? It's like a lot of folks looking to get engaged in different ways, not having all of the resources, all of the answers, right? And you're always left out there like trying to be the like leverage people's time and energy and love, but also like not wear them out or exploit them or leave them feeling like they're just being kind of like used as a tool, right? So I'm interested in like just your mindset. Like I can't go to someone's house for like 3 hours. Like I once lost roommates because I refused to take my shoes off when they were trying to give me a tour of the house. Like full stop. Yeah. So you're going into these people's houses for like 2.5 weeks and you're just like embedding your, like, what is your mindset? What is your approach to going into a household? And
Well, I'll prove it to you right now. I'm taking my shoes off.
oh gosh.
I actually do normally do this because I grew up in like Ohio and Kentucky in like a kind of like rural part of the state. When I moved to Chicago, my friends were just like, you can't like walk outside with your like bare feet. You need to put shoes on, girls. There's like heroin needles on the ground. And I was just like, what's heroin? You know? But to actually answer your lovely question, for me, it was always about being really human in these spaces with people. That I think that I'm most effective as a journalist when people kind of forget that I'm a journalist a little bit. And I think I have a personality that's kind of paradoxically equipped really well for this because I'm not the person that people expect normally. Like, I'm a weird little person who likes my weird little things, and I make, like, odd jokes. Like, I joked about the Apocrypha, like, 2 minutes ago, and I bring that to my interviews. I used to really try to tamper that down and be very professional with folks and be very, like, I am serious. But I just realized that when I was really, human and, like, warm and a little bit funny with them and a bit familiar, like, people just, they stop thinking about you as a reporter, and they start treating you like a friend that they feel like they can be safe with. And of course, there's a responsibility there, because that means that I've got to do right by them. Like, I've got to take care of this person, right? There's like a trust that's built up there. So I felt like, for this book, I just had to like not only like ask for that trust by being familiar with them, but then earn that trust over and over again. And I think one of the ways that I really was able to do that with this book is that I never decided what the story was going to be. Like, I didn't go to these, these 7 states and, like, drop myself in with these families and be like, on reality TV, like, in the 90s or, like, the 2000s, they would, like, assign you an identity. They'd be like, you're going to be the angry drama queen, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be that. Right? I never decided people's characters for them or anything like that. I let them express themselves. I would ask the kids, what story do you want to tell? What story feels most important for you to get across? And I always deferred to that, every single time. If there was this story that they felt was the thing that they wanted to say with this space, that's what we did. And I just figured out how to express that. And I felt or rather how to use my tools to help them express that. And I think that they weren't used to that. They weren't used to genuinely feeling like they're being heard. Because a lot of the time, if they're called up by a journalist, they kind of ask them 3 questions and then bounce. It's like, how does this feel? How does this feel? How about this bad legislation? Okay, bye, thanks, have a nice day. And just getting to control the story and control the narrative, and it being so centered on themselves and their own experience, it just allowed these kids to really open up to me in a way that they really hadn't been able to do that before and hadn't had the opportunity to do before. And it was so incredibly valuable. I just feel like I got to know these kids so well, not just as a reporter, but as a human being. I truly know these families better than people I've known my entire life. Because I think people don't realize that, you get an understanding of it if you read the book, but it's we were sitting for an hour and a half almost every day and doing essentially in-depth therapy, right? We are going over everything, the good, the bad, the in-between, the messy. We're talking about their goals, their dreams, their aspirations, what they wanted to be when they grew up, their favorite movies. We get into all of it, and it just builds this incredible bond. I truly will be bonded to these folks for the rest of my life. And it was the most fabulous experience. And truly, I'm forever changed by it. And I think with the book, I just kind of wanted to give readers just a little sliver of that, to sort of let people fall in love with them the way that I did. Obviously not as much as I did, because you weren't there, but you feel like you were a little bit. You feel like you know these families. You feel like you know these kids. And I'm just so glad that I got to be able to give that gift to people, because it's truly amazing.
So, Wyatt, right?
Yes.
Now we're going to focus on trans kids for a second, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Wyatt, South Dakota?
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt's from South Dakota.
You're not saying it right, though. You have to get South Dakota.
South Dakota. Wyatt's from South Dakota.
Yeah.
Wow. So this isn't on video, right? South Dakotans, I apologize. I'm not slandering.
It's the Fargo accent, but a little less. It's you're doing 50%
Upper
Fargo.
Peninsula accent for folks in Michigan, I think, is probably what we.
Wait, is that what people from the UP sound like?
The UP? Yeah, I think that's what they sound like. I mean, we have an employee from the UP, so this might be like workplace hostility. I don't know. Carrie,
No one
if you're
call
watching, I
HR.
apologize. Don't tell the boss. So, no, you talked about this just a second ago with Wyatt. I think there's this line about Wyatt where you're like, he knows, like, he has the words, like, he thinks he wants to say. He's not always sure how to express them, but, like, he's mostly worried that they'll be taken the wrong way, right? Yeah. And, like, I'm just trying to picture, right, like, being a kid, 14, 15, 16, 17, even, like, 18, early 20s even, right? Like, trying to move through life feeling like you're almost like censoring yourself, or like you're so worried that everything you do will be construed a certain way. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're with these families, you're with these kids, like they're carrying that weight around, and you're like, you know, you're witnessing it. Like, do you give advice? Like, I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you balance that? Just like as a human, and you're like an adult, so you're like, maybe I know the ending, maybe I don't know the ending.
I tried not to very much. There were certain moments, like there's actually one moment in the book where I talk about like this is like the time as a human where I felt like I needed to jump in and give advice. Because Mykah, who's the kiddo in the third chapter, with black genderfluid teen who at the time was 18, living in like rural West Virginia, was just really going through it mental health wise, and that just was really struggling in front of me, and just. It's one of the, oh my God, I'm getting really teary tonight. It's like one of the few things from the book that I always get really choked up about, because just seeing somebody in that level of pain and not knowing what to say or being able to do anything about it was like, I think really difficult for both of us. I think it was difficult for me to see Mykah struggling, but them to also struggle so much in front of me, because it wasn't what we had planned. Like they just, when we had planned this book, you know, they were this really like ebullient, larger than life character. They had so much just like spunk, for like lack of a better way to put it. And I love that. They're the kind of person that like if you meet them once, you'll never forget it for the rest of their life. Like the true like light up a room kind of person. But that just was not the case when I got there. And it was due to the pandemic, and then all these other factors had just really gone through like a mental health spiral. And I gave them the option of, you know, we could not be honest about that, but be a little less honest, to not include as much of that as they would want to. But Mykah gave me permission to like really go for it and like really express like, no, this is like what's going on in my life. I want people to know that even like happy people go through this sometimes. Like you can be like a person who has big dreams and goals and aspirations and has a lot going for you and still like hit rock bottom sometimes. So we really went there. And it was tough. And it was really tough to not intervene. But of course, every once in a while, like there had to be that moment where I'd just be like, you know, not like it's gonna get better, but you know, I went through this too, you know? Like, I think any like queer adult or like trans adult has had those moments when they were a teenager and they didn't feel like it was all gonna turn out okay, that they couldn't see a future for themselves, or they just didn't know how to get to that future. I grew up really poor, like Angela's ashes poor. Not quite as poor as my grandmother, who literally had a dirt floor. But like when we moved into the rotting, falling down trailer I lived in high school, it like the roof was caving in. And the only reason we got it is because some guy had died in it, and we got the chair that he died in. And there was like this like floor or this room you couldn't walk in because it didn't have a floor. And if you were to walk inside it, you would like literally fall down to the dirt. And there were just so many times living there and like living the kind of life that I did, that I just didn't know how I would grow up, you know? Like, I didn't know how I would get to college. I didn't know how I would make anything work for myself. The only reason I got to college is because my grandmother ran into some lady in a Michael's whose daughter happened to be going to the same school as I was. So I stowed away in the back of their U-Haul to get to college. That's literally a true story. Me with like my one sack of stuff. It was very like, you know, 1920s like guy on the train. It was a lot. I think being able to be human and present with them and talk about things that I've been through and things that I've experienced, where I'm kind of anti-advice. I'm not going to be like, it's going to get better or you do this or that, but I can at least be like, I've shared some experiences. I know what this feels like, and you're not alone. So I think, you know, that's what I tried to do most, to be like, I'm sort of a witness to the fact that, like, I've been through some of the same shit that you went through. Not the same thing, you know, you can never really walk in someone's shoes, but like different things that are sort of analogous in some way, right? And I made it. I'm here sitting with you. You can be this person for someone else someday. You can be that person who's a witness to a young person who's going through the same things that you are, like 20 years from now. And I think I would just like express that you just got to get there, you know?
Yeah. And so there's three different directions I could take this all at once. But first, you talked about Mykah, right? And you want to tell folks what Mykah was writing in their journal? Like, this was at the end of the chapter or near the end of the chapter, but it really inspired me.
Yeah, they had started writing, so as sort of an exercise for themselves, because they were kind of stuck in this like just mental health holding pattern, right? So they bought this journal, and every morning they would write, what good will I do today? And just, I don't think it was, I don't think it necessarily was like a way to hold themselves to like something like that they had to put something there. But I think it was about the idea of even asking the question, right? Because they were at this point in their life where they were so depressed and just traumatized by things that they'd experienced that they wouldn't even go outside. Like it was hard to get them to like go to the cafe with me or like go to the grocery store or just like leave their room. So like even the prompt, the question, the idea, the potentiality, the idea that they could be working towards something was a really, really big step. And I was really proud of them. And I have to say Mykah's in a really, I mean, this is kind of spoilery because I'm writing a new chapter that kind of, for the paperback, that updates you on how everyone's doing. And Mykah's in a pretty good place. They ended up dropping out of school because they got a full ride to Huntington. Another spoiler, sorry. I'll stop doing this.
We'll buy the sequel.
Yeah.
We will, like...
Yeah, but dropped out of school because their sister died. So they sort of went back home to be with their mom, but really kind of found themselves in an unexpected way. Because, as I say in the book, their sort of dueling passions are fashion and performance, like theater. They were very much like the theater kid of the book. Everybody was a theater kid, but this kid was the most theater kid, you know? So they got to claim the mantle of book theater kid. And they realized, oh, I want to be a drag performer. So they've like been like full on like practicing like drag with this idea of like they want to go like do like Charleston Pride and maybe like be on RuPaul's Drag Race someday. And I've got to say, this kid's got all CUNT, charisma, uniqueness, urban talent. RuPaul, if you're listening, cast this diva for season 1 billion or whatever we're on. And just seeing them sort of find themselves even through these trials and tribulations in this really unexpected way, it just makes me so proud. I love them so much, and I just really like truly believe in Mykah, and I believe in Mykah's belief in themselves. So like seeing that sort of reignited again and seeing them just like excited and passionate about things, it's really cool. And I rubbed off on them because they're a total cinephile now, and I got to like kind of like rub my nose in that. That's great. Like they just watched Bound, and I'm like, yes, Bound is a great movie. If you haven't seen Bound, watch it. It's awesome. Unless you're under 18, then ask a parent.
There are a lot of like artistic references in the book, like movies I've never heard of because I watch like C-SPAN during the day, right? So I'm like,
C-SPAN's great.
I'm like, Google, help me out again here, like trying to read an artist's work instead of a politician's. Not to say politicians aren't performing, but
what was your Google? What was your Google-less Google? Like the one that really where you're like, what the fuck is this?
I mean, pick any of the words you use. Like, like big words for someone who grew up in a factory town. So I was working through that, but
I had to Google all the words to make sure that I knew what they actually meant.
Well, this is just a podcast now. Yeah. I appreciate the connection you have with these kids. Rhydian, Alabama, right? Just trying to paint pictures for everyone here. So I think it was Rhydian, had a friend from like the summer camp. Juliana? Am I getting character? Or, no, they're not even characters. Like they feel like
Juliana was the neighbor.
Juliana was the neighbor.
Yeah.
And Rhydian's pronouns are
he, him.
He, him. Yeah. So Juliana's talking about Rhydian, and she's like, he is just the coolest person. Like, there's so much shit going on, and we're all down here with it. And Rhydian's like up here, right? Like above it all. And I just sort of feel that way about trans kids generally. Like so much discussion. It's so infuriating sometimes about trans kids' mental health and depression and suicidality. And those are really important conversations to have. But like, I wish we talked more about like how, I'm trying not to swear because my mom yells at me, how freaking resilient these kids are and these families are. So this is yes or no question. Are trans kids the coolest people on earth?
Yes. And I also loved letting Rhydian be so cool, because all of the chapters for me were playing on certain like archetypes or like pop culture narratives. Like everything was sort of like their this like meta reference to these like different things that I would sort of use as a way to like piece together like my vision for the chapter. And for Rhydian, one of them was very much like John Hughes movies. Like this like idea of like what we thought was like the cool guy in the 1980s movie, right? And he's got like the red, like the Jake Ryan, like the red car and the feathered hair. Michael Schofling, if you're listening, please call me. But I love that you had this kid who, you know, he's this trans boy in Alabama. So when everybody hears about that, they're like, ooh, how, you know, how's that going? And I'm like, actually, he's doing really well. Like, you know, he's like confident. He's got this really outgoing personality, and he's the most popular boy in his school. And I think just hearing that and knowing that that's possible in a place like Birmingham, like always really surprises people. And it kind of rewrites these narratives that people have, not just about trans life, but about like queer people across the country, about like what it means to be trans in the South. And I just love flipping people's expectations. I loved with this book taking what people thought it was going to be going in and then being like, actually, it's going to be completely different than what you expect. Because, you know, as a writer, I want to write a good book. Like, I want to write a book that isn't expected, is going to, like, you know, challenge the reader, and also just be, like, interesting and sort of keep you on your toes. But also, these kids deserve that. Like, there's this idea of, like, the danger of a single story, that if you tell the same story over and over again, it's it becomes the only story that people think exists. And for these kids, I just wanted to show, like, as I say, the like illimitability of their experience, right? That these kids can be anything and everything if only we just let them be as cool as they are.
And the first off, yes. Can we just like, I mean, yeah. And like the families in the book too, even like family members who like, maybe they're not all the way there or they don't get it all, but there's still so much like love that's present in the book. And there's something I've been just trying to like, I'm always playing around with reclaiming narratives here in a swing state, purple state, where like we saw, you know, tens of millions of dollars of anti-trans ads during the election, right? And so they're always trying to paint the community and the kids and the situation one way. And so I've started doing my best when I'm talking about, like, I never just say, this is anti-trans, right? I've starting to use the terminology, like, this is anti-family, this is anti-working family, right? Like, this is anti-working class Michiganders. And it's really important for me to, I think, to, like, take that weapon away from them, that, like, these families are working families. And you talk about this in the book. I think it's, help me with names, the dad, veteran, like going through it, I think some PTSD, some chest pains
Rhydian's
from anxiety.
That's Tom.
That's Rhydian's dad, Tom. And like, so you're talking about Tom and you're like, okay, Tom is like a quintessential American story, but on top of it, he's got to deal with all this shit about like, can his kid continue to get health care, right? Like, will his kid be able to use the bathroom at school, right? And I loved how you spent like so much time focusing on that. So like, is that an important part of the story too? Like showing how these families are like so similar to every other family in the country, or?
Well, it's weird. I was never ever trying to, in the book, like show how similar and what anyone was to anyone else. Like I always wanted to let the families be really like unique and particular. Like especially because I'm quite rebellious. I was once voted most confrontational, and I wear that with pride. If I had a sash that said most confrontational, I would wear it every single day. And when we were pitching the book around to different publishers, we got some really interesting feedback. One of the publishers told us that the book wasn't realistic because none of the families rejected their kids. So, yeah. Macmillan, by the way, great people. And then, yeah, I know. and then a lot of the other publishers seem to really want me to like flatten the narratives and present these kids as like one like unit kid who could like stand in for everybody. And it's just knowing teenagers, it's just the only thing I know about them is that they're all so different from each other, right? There's no way we could possibly paint over like with a broad brush over such a large population of people, and like especially trans kids, right? And that uniqueness is what not only makes them special, but what makes them interesting. So for all of these families, I wanted to allow them to just be as unique as they already were. Like I wanted them to be able to express their own like particularness. But I think through that, you're able to see the universal in them because these stories are universal. They don't need to be made to stand in for something universal by being like really bland and generic. You just as a human, like connecting with other human stories, you can see yourselves like in their lives and in their experiences. You can go, oh, I've experienced something like that, or like that's like my dad, or that's like this, or like that's like that. Because I think as people, we're always doing that and we're always piecing that together. We're always like building empathy, right? Because I think we're just like empathy machines for other people. But I feel like for trans people and their families and their loved ones, we haven't been able to do that as much. We treat them as if they have like completely different experiences than the rest of us. As you know, as I write in the book, as if they occupy a different world. I sort of make a joke in it that it's kind of like trans kids are these sea creatures who were just recently discovered at the bottom of the ocean, right? Rather than these people who have been occupying the same planet just as everyone else has for such a long time. So I just always wanted to balance those things and put people's humanity first. You know, you were saying before that, you know, these things are anti-family and anti-working class. For me, it's also just anti-human. Like, these are human fucking beings. I have no problem with cursing. I will happily curse. I'll say it again. Fucking human beings, right? And we don't treat them that way. We not only don't treat them like they're just kids, just like all other kids, but we don't treat them like they are humans occupying this world just like all of us, like Americans who have the same rights as everybody. And I just always just wanted to emphasize that and put that first and really like express their humanity here. That's really, to me, the entire point of the book.
Yeah, I mean, showstopper.
I'll do my tap dancing later.
Yeah, that's what I came here for. So look, I'm going to talk about my favorite section of the book, just in this sliver, okay? And I swear I would pay $50 for this book if it was like one page and it was this section. And it's, for me, this is a moment of like joy. This is a moment of like, it's like a happy ending moment. And like, again, I think we've established I'm not the cinematic person, but like, I thought this was like, Hollywood could not have written this scene better when Wyatt comes out to his mom, right? And like writes this letter, and that's how he comes out. And in the letter, he leaves I think in his mom's bedroom. He signs his name Wyatt, which is his name for the first time. And so like, and then he's just like waiting in his bedroom, right? And I'm like, you cannot not see this as like a actual film when you're reading the book. Like, it's so well written, but it's also just such like an organically beautiful story. And so he's just sitting here waiting, and mom's like reading the letter, and she finishes the letter and she walks over to Wyatt's bedroom, and he's just like sitting on the floor waiting for her. And you describe it as like she literally scooped him off the floor, right? And like, that was I think like that's like, and I don't know everything that happened after that, but that moment, like being physically scooped off the floor, is like, I feel like what every trans kid deserves when they come out to their family. So I just wanted to say, like, I don't know if I have anything. I don't even know if there's a question. I just wanted to tell you that was my favorite part of the book.
Thank you.
I mean, when you heard that story, were you like me? You know, like what, like. Good Lord.
Well, it's weird because it's like I'd known that story for so long because I've known their family. You know, this was the first chapter that I wrote, and also they were the first family that I knew. So I've known Wyatt's story for so long because I met him for the first time when he was like 13, and I was so like taken with him, like in a way, because he's so smart. Like, I don't even think I could express in this book how smart he is and how wise he is at like such a young age. He's always been like that. Like, he gave me his journal, like the stuff that he'd been writing when he was like 13. and it's better than stuff I write now. And I was like, fuck you, bitch, for being this good of a writer at 13. Like, how dare you? And he's like a talented like artist on top of it. And he just had so much to him, and there was so much depth there. And I just knew, I think from that moment that, because I'd read articles in which he'd been quoted before and been interviewed, and they just did not get at the depth of it at all. I was like, this kid I have not met in those stories. You know what I mean? Because I've read those stories first, and now I'm meeting him, and I'm just like, God, how did no one just let you be this person? How did no one let you be this poet and this artist, right? And I wanted to give him that opportunity to really just like express like the full like breadth of who he was as a human being. And I think I was just so in awe of their family. I like that I got to start with their story, their family story, because I feel like there's something so quintessential about what everything they've been through is. Like, I sometimes say that his mom, Susan, is like the mom everyone wished that they were, you know, or that they'd had. There's something so aspirational about that. And I think for me, like, there's almost like a twinge of regret that I like didn't get that a little bit. But I think even knowing that that's out there, knowing that some kid has had that experience where he got to be scooped up right away, where he got to just be like loved and embraced by this person who was very much had no idea what was really going on, didn't really know anything about like trans issues or trans people, but just loved her kid and was going to figure it out and learn. I just like, knowing that that's possible and that someone gets that, someone out there gets that, makes me feel better about the world. Because I know that it's not just one family. There are so many families like that. There are so many families that have that story that aren't told in this book, or haven't been told at all, right? Because this book, it's only 7 stories. I can't represent everybody. You know, this book, I say that it's like the tip of the iceberg, right? And that the iceberg is just all of the other like trans experiences, good and bad, right? There are some people who don't get that story. But I felt like I needed to hear these kinds of stories during this time when things seem so hopeless a lot of the time, and when I'm struggling for hope. I need to be reminded that that love and that embrace is possible, that we can still come together with like our families, with our chosen families, with our friends, with other like queer and trans people. It's just so important to remember. So yeah, to that person who said that this book isn't realistic, well, screw you. It's the book, this book I wrote anyway.
And then I have 2 questions, and then I want to leave time for some audience questions, right? So,
let's do it.
First, like Mr. Evans from Rhydian story, the teacher.
Who's so hot.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. I don't know if I expressed that in the book enough.
Picture book coming July 2026.
Yeah, just like a photo, like a calendar spread.
I would buy like a firefighter calendar, but it was like people who are nice to trans kids. Like, just like I would buy that.
Yeah, I interviewed him once. I had to interview him once at a cafe to like get more information for this book, and the entire time I was just like doing this. I was like, "Tell me more, tall man."
But I mean. Okay.
Sorry,
well,
I
that
got
changes things because he was already kind of hot, just like based off the way he treats people, right? But
yeah.
So Mr. Evans
he's
is like teaching LGBT, like a private school, like a charter school academy for like LGBTQ kids and kids from other sort of like vulnerable, marginalized backgrounds who have like they're not broken, but they've been broke, right? Like by like just the system and the pressure. And like this teacher, it kind of reminds me of that old 80s movie like Stand and Deliver, you know? Yeah, like Jaime Escalante. And it's like, it's kind of got that vibe, right? Where he's like, whoa, why is everyone mad that like these kids aren't performing in algebra? Like, I'm really worried that if their car breaks down in rural Alabama, they're going to get killed. So I'm going to teach them how to put on a tire, right? Yeah. Like, talk about like meeting people where they're oh God, I just ruined my mom's Mother's Day.
Sorry,
about
Mom.
like meeting people where they're freaking at. Gosh.
No one has ever cursed ever.
Second bouquet of flowers coming. So I think that's really important, right? And I just want to pick on someone really quick. Can I pick on you? You know who I'm talking about. My first boss when I lived in Ann Arbor is here tonight. Sarah, can you raise your hand? I came out and transitioned like 10 years ago, and things have changed a lot in 10 years. And when I came out at my company, the people were like, I don't know what that is, and it sounds interesting, but I don't think you can do that. Like, you know? And I was like, no, well, you can, right? And they're like, I don't think you can. My wife's pretty progressive and she doesn't know about that, right? So, like, but the first time I came to work, and I worked in like corporate America, I'm an accounting dropout, and I found my way to politics. So chase your dreams, kids. Now, I showed up to work the first time I showed up as myself was almost a full year after coming out at work. And Sarah had this little cubicle tucked in the corner, and she said, when you decide, like, when it's the first day you show up as Emmy, like, you come here and you stay here as long as you need to. Like, so I remember walking through the stairwell doors early, like, no one else was there. We were early risers. I mean, we kicked ass. So, like, beelined from the door to the cubicle and probably sat there for, like, an hour, right? But, like, talk about someone who's like, I just need to meet her where she's at, and, like, she doesn't need to be told to, like, get the project done, or, like, this is what this employee needs to thrive right now. This is what my friend needs to thrive right now. So, like, you probably meet a lot of people in the world of living lives with, you know, trans kids and their families in rural areas and things like that. Like, is that inspiring? Like, all of the people you get to meet who do the little things, like, just like they know they're helping, you know? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you imagine if I said no, that I wasn't inspired by that? No, I'm not inspired by that at all. Well, I think for me, it's like the thing I'm inspired most by are the people, you know, the Mr. Evanses are really great. Like, I love, like, seeing this guy who can kind of model, I think, the dad that a lot of those kids at that school maybe don't get, right? Because he really does become like a stand-in dad for so many of these students, and giving them these really, like, granular tools that they can apply in their daily lives. So, like, literally change a tire, like how to sign a lease, how to look for an apartment. These things are really important because these kids might not get that other places. Growing up, I didn't get a lot of that stuff because my parents spent a really long time getting divorced. It was like living in a Russian novel. It was like a lot. And there just wasn't anybody around to teach me things. So it meant that I had to teach myself things. And it just, I'm not the brightest crayon always. So it took me a really long time to get it together and, like, be this, you know, charming person that you see today, right? And having someone like Mr. Evans that's like, I got you, like, to these kids, I just wish I had that. So I'm quite envious. But I have to say, the thing that inspires me are all of the parents and the allies and even, you know, the other, like, queer and trans people who, like, maybe didn't know anything about, like, what it means to be queer, means to be trans, means to be intersex, means to be this, means to be that, but educate themselves and do the work and become allies. Because I don't think we come into any of this perfect, right? We don't come into this with all of the knowledge. We have to educate ourselves. So seeing someone like Susan, where, you know, she started out when, you know, Wyatt came to her that day, she didn't even really know what it meant to be trans. She'd barely heard the word trans before, right? And she gets to, you know, she like gets every book on the subject that she can find. She not only educates herself, but she sends these, like, essentially welcome packets to everybody in the family, explaining, you know, what it means to be trans. This is Wyatt's name, his pronouns. She even, like, printed out research studies to where if they were like, is this real? They could read the research study and be like, actually, it is real. These researchers have said so. Also, you can meet any trans person and ask them. But, you know, we don't really need the research on it, you know what I mean? But, like, you know, she did the work, and she kept doing the work. She founded this statewide advocacy group for trans kids and their families, to where, you know, it's really more for the parents, I think, sometimes for the kids. It's for the kids, too. But it's like, if there's a Susan out there who doesn't have someone like that in her life, right, that she can call up and ask, be like, my son just came out as trans, I don't know what to do. Now she's got someone. She's got someone to call. She has this group that can help walk her through it, and that's so valuable to have. And knowing that that came from somebody who didn't start out as an expert in this, I think is so incredibly inspiring, because it shows all of us we can do that. You know, it kind of allows us, gives us the permission to not put up with our own excuses, right? To not say, I'm too scared to engage, or like, I'm gonna make a mistake, I'm gonna screw up. Because Susan screwed up a bunch, right? Of course, you know, she's learning. That's what happens when we're learning. We make mistakes and then we get better. But there's this, I go to this Buddhist temple in LA, and I'll get to take a shot because I talked about being a Buddhist. And several weeks ago, the sort of stand-in Gen for the day, he said something that'll always stick with me. he said that trying increases karma. And I'd never heard anyone say that, because there's this idea, that Yoda thing, right? There's no try, there's only do, right? But actually trying is really important. And we see how many people aren't trying right now. And all of us need to try, even when it's scary, because when you try, you get better. You know, you improve, you become your Susan eventually, right? That like 10,000 hours idea. This idea that you get better, you become an expert. And these kids just need to see us trying. They need to see us showing up, being imperfect and learning and being there for them and being present. So seeing those people who have given that gift, given people the gift of trying, it just inspires me every day. It inspires me to see all of you here. I know that sounds like I'm like sucking up, and maybe I am a little bit, but it's just like, I know so many people who are sitting out these conversations, who have decided that it's just too hard to engage. And seeing like, 60 people on like, a Friday night who could have, been like out like clubbing or whatever people do. But you're here and you're listening to me blather on. It just like, it makes me feel like there's hope for us. And I just really need that right now. So thank you.
Yes, we're all proud of you, rowdy party animals, finally getting an education on a Friday, right? Look at you pretending to be academics. But I don't think, I have a million two questions, but like we got to get to some audience questions and let them ask some questions. So I think y'all, and I embrace the silence. So we'll wait until people have questions.
Oh,
Yeah, I will
call on
pass
people.
around a microphone. We're going to take about 5-ish minutes. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to get their book signed too. Thanks.
What did you learn that surprised you, and what did you have to unlearn along the way?
Oh, I think I actually got the chance to do a lot of that a long time ago, because I've been doing this work for so long. I feel like I got my education kind of like early and quickly, because I started reporting, with families of trans kids in like 2016, right? So by the time I started writing this book, I already had 7 years of experience under my belt. And I'm grateful for that, because it meant that all of the kids didn't have to educate me when I was there. They didn't have to tell me what pronouns to use or don't do this, don't do that. We could just be present with each other. We could be like human beings and not worry about all that other stuff. Because these kids, they have to educate everybody in their lives, right? They have to like educate their friends, their families, people at school. They have to like their churches, if the church is open to it, right? They have to educate lawmakers a couple times a year when they're like going there, right? To be like, please don't discriminate against me. And often the lawmakers then don't listen, right? And that's just such a big burden to put on children that I'm glad that I wasn't another battle that they had to fight. But I think the thing I had to get good at, and this isn't just like a working with trans kids thing, I don't think we're taught how to listen in society. Like, I don't think I've ever in my life had a lesson on listening. And I had to get good at that. Because at first I wasn't. And I think it was my biggest impediment to like not just like being a journalist, but in some ways being a human being. Like truly listening to other people and being subservient to their needs and their thoughts, and not letting my own stuff get in the way of that. Right? And that was something that was genuinely hard for me, because I think it is for like every reporter who like genuinely gives themselves over to the work, like learning how to like just be an instrument for somebody else, because it is like this, like you have to almost learn altruism, right? You have to learn how to give that to someone and not let your ego get in the way. And that's tough. It takes years of practice. And I think every once in a while I still like, find myself like catching myself being like, but I, like all things, it's a practice. I just keep trying, and I hope I keep like getting better and better at it, because it's like, you see the benefit for these kids, like that feeling of truly being heard by someone, feeling like someone is listening to you is so powerful, and there's no replacement for it. And I'm glad I got to give that to these kids, and I just wish that every kid got that, Nothing big. Which I got lucky about. There is this one little detail, because Wyatt, who's a very good writer, he gave me a lot of feedback on his chapter. And well, I got notes, honey. And he, one of them was really prescient. He said that the first, because I didn't know how I was going to write this, and the original version was, I was reading John Steinbeck at the time. I was reading East of Eden, so it was super sprawling and Steinbeck-esque, and it just, it really incorporated the history of these places and all this stuff. And Wyatt was like, this is nice, but a lot of it's not about me. And I was like, I read it. I was like, oh shit, you're right. So I pared down all the stuff that wasn't about Wyatt. I was like, if it's not about you or it doesn't some way directly explain your personality and the direct experience of you, it goes, right? Of the direct experience of being you. Like, it's gone. And the one thing it killed me to cut, like my last words from this earth will be moaning about it, is that in South Dakota, when their governor ran for re-election, Kristi Noem, who's now our Department of Homeland Security head, her campaign headquarters was right next to a certain building. It was a combination blank and blank, and it was not a KFC and Taco Bell. Do we want to guess what it was? Yes. So let's guess those two businesses. Give me a business. Oh, I love those, but wrong. Sorry, but wrong. Strip club. Ooh, strip club is close. We're getting closer. Bar. What was that? A bar. Nope. I will tell you, it was a combination pawn shop and gun store. And there was just something so like. Perfect for her. It's so perfect. And as somebody who grew up in very rural, blue collar Ohio, there was just something that really captured a kind of experience that felt like a perfect symbol of something right in that building. And it just killed me that I couldn't put it in. But it just unfortunately, Wyatt feeling like he was being heard was more important. So I'll work it into something else in the future. Yeah.
I think we have time for just one more. I'm sorry, but maybe you can ask some more in the sign line too.
Sure.
This isn't really a deep question, but are the 7 people on the cover, are those the kids?
Oh, no.
No?
So the way that worked is I asked my favorite contemporary artist, Pace Taylor, to do something, and then I gave them no notes, and this is what I ended up with. And luckily... Yeah, I just really loved it. And I knew whatever Pace was going to do was going to be really fabulous. And I also didn't expect them to say yes. It's kind of like asking Meryl Streep to be in your movie and being like, Meryl Streep will never be in my movie. And then suddenly Meryl Streep is in your movie. So I was like, okay, well, whatever Pace wants to do, it's great. So luckily, I really loved it. We had my editors had one note on it. And then otherwise, it was good. I just thought there was something that's so beautifully mid-century about it. It had all this James Baldwin quality to it. It really hit so many marks to it that I didn't even know that I needed. And some of them do genuinely kind of look like the kids. Like the girl on the far, the bottom left could definitely pass for Jack. If somebody told me oh, that's supposed to be Jack, I'd be like, oh yeah, obviously, duh. The only thing is that Jack would never wear a beret, not in a million years. Other than that, absolutely. Thank you. And before we totally cut, I want to say one thing. I always finish everything with this, which the Literati people, are you in the house? Literati in the house.
Stephanie is here. Let me grab her.
Yeah, get Stephanie so we can embarrass her.
Stephanie.
Ba, ba, ba. I'll just start it anyway.
I've lied. Stephanie's not in the house. I will be Stephanie. Hello.
Oh, did she leave?
Yes, come. She's on her way.
I thought she bailed for a second. I was like, Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie, how many books do we have left?
We have 1 book left, and unfortunately it has a slight tear on one of the pages, but there is 1 book left for whoever wants
that means it's vintage.
Yeah.
This is how it works.
It came that way from the publisher, so blame them.
Yeah, but yes, truly, write them an angry letter. But please buy this book, and also you can order more directly from Literati.
Yes.
I beg of you to do so because people have this idea that authors are very wealthy. I can show you my bank account. I'm not. I just had to pay my taxes. It's like a Jordan Peele movie in there. It's very scary. And you can also kind of like help me get a little bit of revenge on our publisher, because when we started out sort of doing this book tour, you have to have all of these like PR meetings, right, where they give you all this advice, which you can tell from the tone of my voice that I loved. And in one of them, our head of PR was like, you know, you really need to set your expectations low for these events, because usually only about like 30% of audience members buy a book, you know? And I was like, 30% of audience members, low expectations. What are you talking about? Like, I was single for a very long time because I do not have low expectations. I'm not about to change now. So that's my long-winded way of saying, please buy a book. It would really mean a lot to me. It would mean, you know, not only do I get to pay my bills eventually, but also it sort of like helps with the future of this work. Because I think what people don't realize is that if people don't buy your book, you never get another one, and then you're not allowed to do this anymore. And I have lots of books that I want to write about queer people, sort of uplifting our experiences and also really centering healing. That was something that was so important to me doing this book, that like I think we talk about trauma and we talk about joy a lot, but we don't often talk about healing and creating a space for these kids to like talk about healing and talking about their own journeys to healing and make it possible for other people to have some measure of healing through that. It's not why I set out to write the book, but now that I did it, I'm so glad that I got to do that. And I just want to do that forever. So please buy a book. It would mean so much to me. And if you don't, I will find you. I'm an investigative reporter. I'll hunt you down. I'm just kidding. But also, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for this. This has been the most fabulous evening. Thank you so much to Emmy for being an incredible moderator. Thank you to the AADL, I got the acronym right, for putting this on. And thank you so much to Literati, with whom you will be buying a book from, for being a book vendor for this. It's been incredible.
Thank you, Emmy and Nico.